Well, I actually started out school. I was going to be, it was with the aim of being a designer, but I wanted to do engineering and design engineering. So I wanted to design planes originally. So I was doing maths and physics at A level. Didn't really like that actually when I started down that road, and then I applied to art school but I did graphic design. So my degree's in graphic design. And actually that's what I did for about 15 years. I had a design consultancy doing art direction and packaging, and eventually sort of going into retail design. So it sort of morphed over that time, but I'd always been using materials and colour and form, so all my graphics work was very kind of bold and quite punchy as well. So yeah, I did always want to be a designer, but it's kind of what I design has changed quite a lot. So then I had the shop, and then from that became more of a furniture and product designer, and then now I'm more of an interior designer. So it's kind of like this evolution, but they all sort of connect in a way. There's been a bit of a journey. That journey was, so Laura Fulmeen approached Darkroom to design some plates to put on the wall of the Burton May barge when that was first launching. And already at that point, the circle, triangle, square was a big part of the Darkroom kind of aesthetic, that real kind of pared back, simple geometry. And so it made sense to kind of put them on these plates. So we had these 3 circular plates, but these 3 shapes were kind of painted on them by hand, and they split across the 3 plates. So they were hung in the Burton May barge, and then Lee, the owner of Burton May, then contacted us to do a set of tiles that was kind of influenced by the artwork that we'd done on the plates essentially. So it kind of came as a bit of a sort of journey from an abstract piece of art through to like how can we then translate that onto some tiles. And then in terms of like the kind of iconic space, it's really hard to see because I think those shapes are already quite iconic. They're the most pared back, simple shapes, and they're just so pleasing. And so I think the fact that the split shift, it uses them in its own way, and it's I think it's because that's sort of timeless, because those shapes are timeless as well. And I think also the really beautiful thing that happened with it is that people can use it in their own way as well. So I originally designed it with the 3 tiles. You've got the circle, the triangle and the square that form when you line them up correctly. That's how I designed it. And then I was playing around with like different iterations of that, of how you can arrange them, and then you start having this more fractured pattern. And then people have sort of just run with that. So it's so really nice when you see, I mean, that for me, that it just breathes new life into it constantly. That, you know, I love seeing how people use it in their spaces. So, and you know, people have started using kind of blank ones mixed in with the patterns, and it's just so wonderful. So I think it's that thing where the core of it is these classic shapes. I've kind of given it a twist, and then people give it their twist as well. So it's like it's constantly evolving. Okay. So I guess the starting point of how I present work is it's quite bombastic, it's quite bold, it's kind of full on, but that's actually comes down to I've got ADHD, and so I've got a dopamine deficiency, and so my work is very much about kind of stimulating my mind and kind of keeping it quite bold and invigorating. So that's kind of where it starts from, that's where I present it from, but I'm also really conscious of how it sort of then can be taken through into people's homes. And I'm also, you know, I live in a very kind of bold home, and that's how I live, but that not everybody wants that. So it's more about people can cherry pick, they can take these tiles can be something that's a kind of focal point of their kitchen. It's not the whole house. It's not, you know, that pattern clash like I love living with, but I like that people can take an element of it, and it can be like a little star shining corner of their home as well. And then for me also with I really want to design some furniture using the tiles, because I'm quite conscious that not everybody owns their home, and so can't, you know, the permanence of tiles, it's like flooring or walls or bathrooms and things like that, and not everybody has that opportunity or freedom to do that in their own home. So for me, the idea of doing some furniture was a way that people can access it and bring split shift into their homes without, you know, these are kind of portable, temporary, you know, you can take them away with you and move on to your new home, so it's like a piece for life. So it's a way that everybody can access it as well. The original launch was essentially the black and white split shift, And then we also had a secondary colour, which was the blue, the kind of azure kind of blue at that point. And that's how we launched it. It was quite pared back. And the black and white was very much quintessentially darkroom aesthetic at that point. And for me, that kind of strictness of the monochrome was really important to kind of launch this. And then over time, we introduced some other colours. We had the greens, and there's a pink and a navy as well. And that just felt like a sort of natural progression to sort of complement the kind of quite strict monochrome. And that has been kind of, 6-7 years now that those have been working together, and that's been really lovely. But then it felt like a really nice time, I think probably during the pandemic specifically, reconnecting with nature and really kind of enjoying nature and really like noticing nature. That's where the new palette, the sort of more earthy tones started to take form really. And I think myself as a designer as well, Darkroom itself has kind of transitioned a little bit from having the shop, which is very much about this black and white, quite, you know, it's called Darkroom because it was a black box essentially. So I've also been trying to kind of like move it along from that as well. And this is a palette that I'm kind of working with myself and interiors projects that I'm doing. And it feels like a sort of natural progression, like rather than black and whites being my neutral, these sort of my earthy tones and terracotta tones are my kind of natural neutrals really. So it felt like the right time to sort of experiment with the split shift and see what happens. And it's kind of interesting how it's completely turned it on its head. It's softened it much more, and it's kind of, it feels kind of really timely. It feels like a good evolution from the original colour palette. You still completely recognise it from that, but it's got a whole new sort of character now, which is great. It's probably come from my own journey in the sense that the graphic design start has really you can really still see that in everything that I do. So that journey has been important, but I've also always been quite obsessed with architecture, kind of early 20th century, mid 20th century, brutalism. That's what I look at, that's what I'm always out, and that's what I travel for. I go and visit buildings and stuff. So I think that's always had quite an impact on my work too. So my work going from 2D to 3D, there's definitely a sort of architectural kind of slant on it as well. But yeah, I think ultimately the graphic angle is really quite prevalent throughout the whole journey really. You can still tell that my work's been designed by a graphic designer at heart. So what's next for Darkroom? So we've there's already been 2 phases of Darkroom. There's the shop, which we had for 7 years. Then there's been about 5 or 6 years where it's been studio based, and so we've been designing and selling quite small products and some furniture for 2 other shops, so wholesaling but also selling things online and doing collaborations. And then the next phase is actually very much anchored around this, because I want to simplify it again to being basically kind of made to order furniture. I'm very kind of conscious of having stuff I'm having to make a load of stuff in case people might want to buy it, whereas actually I want to make things because they want a specific item. So I want to be able to do custom bespoke furniture using the tiles, so it's commission based and it's made to order so that it's all needed, so there's no waste.